Okay, we are in direct again. No. Let's see if working now. Okay, you are hearing? Someone is hearing me? Everything is okay? Because before we had some problem with audio. I think that now we fixed the problem. I see 5 people online watching us. Okay, so it's perfect. So I'm here with Father Jean, is the spiritual father of our seminary, Redemptoris Mater Seminary in Lebanon. We are very happy to be always connected with Domus Orientalis and Father Marek and Mace and all the people that are sharing in this program of connecting Poland and other countries in the world with the Middle Eastern Christians. So today we are here with Father Jean Azam. He will present him himself more in detail after. And is a Maronite priest serving here in the seminary as a spiritual father. He's also a professor in the university. And he will speak a little bit about the Maronite church and even perhaps see if we have time about some father of the Maronite, the Syriac church, Mar Ephrem, and so now I give the word to Father Jean. I will be at his side. Perhaps sometime I will make ask question from him. Also, you can even ask question with the chat on that we are following now. So waiting.
Hello everybody, I'm Father Jean Azam from Lebanon, Maronite, from the diocese of the famous Sidon, Tyre and Sidon in Lebanon, where Jesus Christ came the first time and healed the daughter of the Canaanite woman, and he was welcomed, and everybody wanted to listen to him. So that is the beginning of the Christianity in Lebanon and in this area, Syria, Lebanon, until Antiochia, where after many years of Christianity, after the apostles, that there was, as you know, 5 major patriarchate in the world. The church was divided administratively in 5 major patriarchate. One of them was one of the first was Antiochia, and that is where Saint Peter was for a while, and there where the Christian were called Christian for the first time. That is the beginning of the church here in our area, and then there was this big community with the patriarchate. But to go fast to our major object, which is the Maronite Church, but in the 5th century, we had a big problem. This is the heresy of the monotheism, and that the synod of Chalcedonian Synod. The result of this synod was to confirm that Jesus Christ was a real man, a real God, but in one person. But many people wanted to say that he was not he was not real man and real God, but he was mainly God. So that is the beginning of the heresy of monotheism. Now this is about Antiochia in that time. In Antiochia there was also 2 big language communities. They were all Christians under the same patriarchate, but speaking 2 languages. In the cities they were speaking Greek language, despite they are Arameans, but they were speaking Greek language because it was the everyday language of the every people, even in Rome, even in everywhere in the world, the ancient world. But in the inner side of the Patriarchate of Antiochia, mainly in Syria and Iraq, there was people were speaking mainly in Syriac. So that's why we can say there were two big communities in the same Patriarchate of Antiochia, one speaking and having, let's say, the Greek culture and language, and those of the cities mainly, and one speaking Aramaic Syriac, where we have the people of the small countries, small villages. The Maronite, before to be Maronite, there were Syriac. So there were Syriac Antiochians. That's why today we say the Maronite church is Antiochian Syriac Maronite. To say, first of all, it is Antiochia. Then this community in Antiochia speaking Syriac, to which belonged the Maronite community. And then in that community, after the big fight, let's say, of Chalcedonia among those who claim Jesus being one person in two natures, and those who claimed Jesus to have one mainly nature, divine nature, but the human nature was a part of it, that split the church into two big parts. Just to make you know a little bit further and wider, those who were monophysicians were not only in Antiochia. All the Patriarchate of Alexandria, all the Armenian church were a monophysite. And a part of Antiochia was monophysite. But that part of Antiochia is a division into the division. Let's say Antiochia had, as I told you, two major communities, bilingual lingual communities, Greek and Syriac. This division of Chalcedonia was between among the Syriac language community. All the Greek were Melkite. It means they were with the Chalcedonian synod.
With the king.
With the king, yes. But in the Syriac community, there was a division between those who were with Chalcedonia, it means with the Pope, with all the church, and those who were against the Chalcedonian Synod, and they were apart. So this is just first introduction. Very difficult to put everything together. Now, just before that, to tell you, there was a saint, a very holy, big saint, an hermit, who was called Maroon. He lived from, let's say, from the beginning or sometimes in the 4th century BC, CD, until 410 he was died. This hermit was anacoreta. It means he was living outside, even not in grottos or any kind. He was a person, like many others maybe, who was willing to live really just without any protection, even from the nature. That man was very holy, and God gave him a lot of gift of healing and teaching. So he gathered around him a lot of disciples who were following his way of life. Now, when he died in 410, those disciples, little by little, they gathered in the 5th century, they gathered in many cells, many small places, around a monastery that they called after the name of their patron, their
Protector.
master, their protector. They called him Saint Maron convent. It was in Syria of today, at the Korush region, around Aleppo, between Aleppo and Turkey of today. Now, these monks, hermits, were among those who accepted the Chalcedonian Synod in 451. So you understand now who accepted between or among the Syriac language speaking community of Antioch were these monks of Saint Maron and all the people around them. Those who refuted the synods were in another place. So now we understand why we have Maronite Church. Because these monks, being against, being with the Maronite, the Synod of Chalcedonia, they were persecuted by the others. They were their friends, their brothers, sometimes in the same family, but they were persecuted. That was in 451 and more. But and there was no more, it was not yet any Maronite church, only the convent of Saint Maron, the monks of Saint Maron, and all the people who are around them and with many other bishops in the area. Without those Syriac belonged until now to that part of Patriarchate of Antiochia, who was with the whole church. Now, in 520, there was the Islam, with Muhammad. And in 538, the region of Syria was occupied by the Muslims. So when the Muslims came to Antiochia, and especially before Antiochia in Syria, they make like a convent, a kind of alliance with the other Syriac Christian. They helped them. Those Christians thought that helping the Muslims to come to this region, they will be free from the hegemony of Constantinople, which was in this area before the Islam. And Constantinople was against them. Constantinople was with Chalcedonian Synod. So they thought they helped the Islam, and the Islam will free them from the others. When the Islam came in, these Christians took the occasion also to persecute the other Syriac-speaking Christians who were with Chalcedonia, and it was a very big problem for those people. So, with the time, they burned many of their monasteries and many of their lands. So many of them thought it was better to leave Syria, and to come to Lebanon. Now, to be more precise, from 638 until 680, around 680, there was no more Antiochian patriarch in Antiochia. Why? Because the Greek language speaking, they thought we have Constantinople, so we have the Patriarch of Constantinople. He will lead our community and he will take care of us. But the Syriac speaking and Chalcedonian, they didn't have this protection. So after 50, 60 mainly years, some people say only 40, but anyway, 40 years of the seat of Antiochia vacant, those Syriac-speaking Christian Chalcedonian, who were also persecuted by Islam and other Christians Syriac-speaking, they decided to elect their patriarch of Antiochia, because there was no a Catholic, let's say, patriarch of Antiochia at that time. And they elected the superior of the Saint Maron convent, who was Saint Jean Maron. His name was Jean Maron. They elected him as the patriarch. But as soon as he was elected patriarch, they were not only persecuted by Islam and by some other Christians, their brothers and sisters, let's say, who were Monophysite, they were also persecuted by the emperor of Constantinople because he said you have no right to elect a patriarch. So they were persecuted from everybody. That's why they took the decision to come to Lebanon, where there are very, very high mountains, very rude and difficult mountains, and they wanted to stay there just to be free and to live their faith, Catholic faith, as they wanted. So they came to Lebanon, and there they have the first place in the valley of Bekaa, the North Valley of Bekaa, where from there they have like a small convent, but from there they climbed the mountains and they came to live in these difficult mountains without any agricultures, anything. It was very difficult to live there, but they preferred to live as eremites or as in poor life, just not to be, just not to renegade their faith. They defended it with their blood, so they wanted to live it freely. So that is the beginning of what we call the Maronite Church. Why? Because the other Christians, Greek-speaking language, after the election of the Syriac Patriarch of Antioch, they said, no, we will, again now, we will elect our patriarchs. So we had in Antiochia now 3 patriarchs. One for the Monophysites, who were separated already in 451. One, the Maronite, who is the legal patriarch of Antiochia, because there was no patriarch when they elected him, and the other who was elected by Constantinople and the other Greek Christian community, the Greek Christian community, a third patriarch. So we had 3. One not Catholic, let's say Catholic Orthodox, but not Catholic, Jacobite, we call them, and 2 from the same church, the Universal Church. Now the Maronites came to Lebanon, but they still with their patriarchs, and they make a lot of evangelization in Lebanon, especially in the mountains where there were the old Phoenicians who were not still Christian, they were pagan. There was a disciple of Saint Maron, Abraham. He was called Abraham. He was really a big apostle of Christ in all the region, and he converted a lot of people. Until now, we have a river in that region called the River of Abraham, Nahr Ibrahim, because he was a very important apostle. Anyway, and with time, the Maronite were living in peace, let's say, because the Muslims, they couldn't come to the mountains of Lebanon with their horses. It was impossible to climb all these mountains. So they were living in peace, living their faith, despite they were poor and they didn't have a lot of fortunes. So this is the beginning. Now, in Lebanon, the Maronite community was very, very life living full, and they had a lot of monasteries, a lot of places, a lot of churches. They rebuilt everything, even a lot of pagan places, pagan temples. They rebuilt them to become churches and monasteries, and it was really the richness of Christianity in this part of Lebanon, especially the north and the center part of Lebanon. With the time, the Maronite find, let's say, grace in the eyes of a new, in the eyes of God, with the coming of the Crusaders. In the 12th centuries, the Crusaders came to our region and they occupied all the regions, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine, the usual actual Palestine. And they were very surprised to find that there were people from this region who are still Catholic, let's say, uh, in this world. Despite they didn't have any relation with the Pope for many years, maybe for, let's say, at least 500 years or 400 years. They didn't have any relation because of Islam and because of the occupation, but they were still very faithful to their Catholic faith. Okay, and when they found them, they asked them if they recognized the Pope, and they say for sure we recognize him. And they had a the Pope recognized them, recognized their patriarchs, recognized their rights. If there was something to correct or to review about liturgy or anything, they helped them to do this. And from that time, the relation between the Maronite Church and Rome was more and more
strong.
yes, strengthened, and the Latin Church, the Pope, helped the Maronite with the time to become really a very living church in this area. Now, this is not the first time that the Maronite had to do with the Pope. I come back a little bit in the history to tell you that when there was this conflict between Syriac Orthodox and Syriac Catholic, let's say, our Maronite community, the convent of Saint-Maron sent a letter to the Pope to tell him that we are persecuted for our faith. And the Pope say, don't be afraid, we will help you. It was still in the time of the Greek Empire, the Greek Roman Empire. And he gave them his help, everything. So it was not. We have many letters in Rome about this correspondence between the Maronite convent of Saint-Maron and the Pope. So the coming of Crusaders helped only to retake again this relation. That's why we don't consider the Maronite as uniat, the uniat, not because it is good or bad, but because we consider ourselves still be faithful, even in the time of no relation with the papal seat of Rome. And one good thing about Maronite, we don't have a Orthodox branch. All the other churches in the Middle East who were Orthodox, they were separated from Rome. Also the Greek Orthodox Church, when some of them came again to unity with Rome, a part they became Catholic, and another part they wanted or they didn't want, but anyway they remained Orthodox, separated from Rome. While the only Oriental Church without an Orthodox branch, Orthodox part, is the Maronite, which is also a proof that we were always Catholic. We didn't have to defend any part of any difference with Rome and the Catholic Church. Now, for this from the time of the coming of Crusaders, as I said, we have one major event that I would like to tell you. This is the beginning of Maronite College in Rome in 1500 80, more or less. It was the second foreign college in Rome. The Pope wanted really to help the Maronite Church to open to the world and to have erudite and to have people well educated in theology and everything. And it was the beginning of a boom for the Maronite Church in Lebanon, because that college, Maronite College, gave really a lot of erudite priests and bishops, and when they came back from Rome, they were reforming the church here, the liturgy, the theology. They instituted small schools to teach languages, to teach. It was wonderful, and at the same time, many from the how you call them, the Mursalin, no? The missionaries, no? Many of the Jesuits, Carmelites, Benedictines, and especially also Vincentians, but also San Francisco, no? Franciscans, all the branches of Franciscan, all of them found in Lebanon with the Maronite community a wonderful place to be there, to live freely, and to make their work of helping other communities in the Middle East, not Catholic, to have a dialogue with them, and that dialogue with between the missionaries and the other churches, that dialogue helped to have some part of these churches, Orthodox churches, to become again Catholic. Now I know many of the Orthodox, our brothers Orthodox, retain this as not a good thing, because they say you divided one church to unite part to Rome. I don't give any judgment about that, but I say this movement of uniatism was done also through the missionaries, but also thanks to the Maronite Church, who first welcomed the missionaries, gave them places to build schools and many things. And from Lebanon, they went to Syria, to Aleppo, and to other cities to have this dialogue, let's say, with the other churches, and that gave the movement of uniatism. That's why now we have, from all the Eastern churches, we have a branch who is now again Catholic. It began in the 17th century mainly, so from 1600 something until 1900. The last one was the Coptic Catholic in Egypt. So and when these brothers became Catholic, most of them were persecuted in Syria and in Iraq and everybody, and many of them they found again, like the Maronite, in the mountains of Lebanon, where the Maronite have some hegemony. They found a place to still there, to have their patriarchate, or at least some major monastery to rebuild their church and everything. So this is our history. Until now, let's say the Maronite Church is a kind of bridge between Rome and the other churches. We feel really very Oriental, but at the same time, we thank God to have had Rome with us, and to have had us with Rome, let's say, to have this combination of love and communion which helped others. Okay, now this is the religious part. I will say 2 words about political parts in Lebanon, because you know Lebanon is a unique country in the Middle East who has a Christian president and who has the freedom for everything, freedom of speaking, freedom of preaching, freedom of changing the religion. If we, the only country maybe there is now the Tunisia, but all the other countries it is forbidden to pass from Islam to Christianity. It is okay if you are a Christian and you go to be Muslim, but you cannot be Muslim and pass to the only country where in the constitution it is allowed and it is normal to change your religion from one side to another. It is in Lebanon. In Lebanon, it is the only country that had a Christian uh, president. Why? Also, let's say, thanks to the Maronite community, because in the history, as I tried to begin to say to you, there was a kind of also good relation between the north of Lebanon, the north and the center of Lebanon, with a community we call Druze community. They were Muslim, but they have like a different type of religion, and they were in the south of Lebanon, south and east of Lebanon, and there they had a principate. They had the prince in the time of the Ottoman, the Turkish, and those Druze, they, for many reasons I cannot explain now, they wanted that Christians come to that region where there were few Christians, and they wanted from the north that Christians and monks come to them to help them in agriculture and in rebuilding their places. And that happened. They came, many of them came from north and the center of Lebanon, and they came to Shuf and Alai and in the east of Lebanon, and they built small communities of Christians, small monasteries. The Druze princes gave them a lot of lands to help them to establish there. And with the time, the relations were wonderful between the Christian community and the Druze community. At that time, we were all the region, even a part of Europe, under the Turkish hegemony, the Ottoman, uh, let's say, domination. But only in Lebanon, in the mountains of not Lebanon of today, but a part of it, in the mountains of Lebanon, there was the community of Christian and Druze having some kind of autonomy in the Ottoman Empire. And that, with the time, I will go a little bit very fast, with the time helped to create this love of autonomy and freedom. That's why when the Ottoman uh, Empire finished at the first World War in 1914, the Christians of Lebanon, the patriarchs of Lebanon, the Maronite patriarchs, asked France, who was asked from the United Nations to follow the creation of Lebanon, to make Lebanon bigger, wider, not because we wanted land of others, but because we think the old Phoenicia, at least the major part of the old Phoenicia, is and was always one country. So why we don't have again our real country? That's why Lebanon was widened from the center and the south, but the mountains, to also the plains and the cities, Tripoli, Tyre, Sidon, and the Bekaa Valley. And we have now the Lebanon of today, a free country, thanks especially to this alliance between Maronite in the north and the center, Druze in the south and the east. Thanks to this, we have now our Lebanon, a free country mainly where we have many problems, confessional problems. We don't speak about problems now because it's not the time. But we have at least a main base of freedom, some kind of democracy. It means democracy, but should be confessional, everything. But it is better than any other country in the region. I believe at least we have freedom of speaking, as I told you already. Now, last thing, the Maronite are now more or less, let's say, in a realistic number, 4 million in the world, 4 or 5 million. in the whole world, but 1 million only are in Lebanon. 5 or 4 million are spread out in all the other countries of the world. In Africa, maybe 500,000. In Australia, more than 500,000. In America, more than 400,000. In Canada, 200,000. In Europe, 200,000, and so on. And in Brazil and so on. But we don't know a lot about them now. They are like now become Latin or whatsoever, but they speak about 3 million Maronite and so on. So we have a big movement of immigration, unfortunately, and in the same time, fortunately, because it is the presence of the Maronite Church now is on all the world. We have like 30 bishops in the world, 15 in Lebanon, 14 in Lebanon, and 16 and more in the world. So this is a small thing to say. Thank you for listening. I told you about Saint Maroon. In common with the Syriac Church, our brothers, Orthodox Church, Orthodox Syriac and Catholic Syriac Church, we have today a wonderful relationship, not as the time of persecution and conflicts, because it was a terrible time. We have a wonderful relationship now. We have communion. We work together. We feel like brothers. This is what it is to be anyway. And we have a common saint, one at least, I say many saints, but one of them at least, the wonderful one who is recognized not only in the Syriac Church, but in all the churches, even in all the world. He is the wonderful Saint Ephrem. Saint Ephrem, the harp of the Holy Spirit, was recognized as Doctor of the Church in 1920 by the Pope Benedictus the 15th, and he was also not eremit. He was belonging to. He lived around the time of Saint Maron from 309 until 300. Let's say 73, 70 something. So Saint Ephrem was not an hermit as Saint Maron was, but he was belonged to a community that they called themselves the Brothers of the Covenant, the Brother of the Covenant. So I will answer all the questions. Just say 2 words about Saint Ephrem. What was the Brothers of the Covenant? They are those who it's wonderful, no? Because the hermit would live out in the fields, in the mountains, and the others come to them. But those like Saint Ephrem, they decided to be among the people, but to live an hermitage life without having marriage or everything. He was deacon. He didn't want to be priest, just for humility. He was deacon, and he was a wonderful composer of hymns, religious, even theological and philosophical hymns. And he was a big exegete. He was having a lot of interpretation about Genesis, Exodus, and many other books. And so this is a wonderful saint. We know. I think you heard about him. Even the evangelical church, the Protestant church, they recognize this saint, Saint Ephrem. He is like for everybody a wonderful saint, and we are all beloved with him. His feast is 28th of January. The feast of Saint Maroon is the 9th of February. Okay, so we have these 2 saints, at least many other saints, but these 2 that we consider as foundators of our churches and our rite and our liturgy and our theology. Thank you very much.
So Father Marek is asking if we have, if the Maronite Church have still a strong monastic movement. There are 3 congregations of monks here in Lebanon. I think perhaps you can explain more, Jean, about how they have been renewed around the 18th century. You know, it's interesting because now they are very powerful and important in the life of the church, the monks.
Yes, as you know, the monks, let's say they have three movements. First of all, there was the eremites, the anacoretas, everywhere alone and with some disciples around, but leaving everybody alone. Then, as I told you, in the after Saint Maron death, in the middle of the 6th century, they become to have another type of life. They accepted not only the Maronite, others also. I think also because of Basilius, Saint Basilius and Saint Pachomius in Egypt, because they wanted to have like some community of monks. So these Anacoretos of San Maron, at least, they uh, they found a middle way to be together. They had built some monasteries, one monastery, let's say San Manon Monastery the first, and many others in Lebanon after. And around the monastery, they were living in cells, small cells, in the grottos or small. And in the monastery, there would be somebody, some of them, they will never gather together all the week. Only on Sunday they gather together. They eat one time together, and they have the Eucharist maybe together and some prayers together. This is what was the second step, to have a kind of life together. Then, in with the time, this life together came to be more frequent. Maybe once a day, they will gather at least once a day to pray, and then everybody on his own. Until the 18th century, the 17th century, when three men from Aleppo, they came to Lebanon and they began like a kind of reform of the monastic life. And they invited all the monks who wanted to gather and to live together with the regular of life together in the monastery. I think it was also necessary at that time. It was These three was encouraged by our saint, another saint, Saint Patriarch Douay, Sven Douay. He is now like to be proclaimed bienheureux, no?
How you say that?
Uh,
Just before to be saint.
yes, well, like a saint, but he will. So
Blessed.
he was. They were encouraged by him to make this reform, and they founded one congregation, one order, was called Aleppino order, because these people were from Aleppo, and many of the vocation came from Aleppo also. With the time, there was kind of some conflict, you know, it's always conflict between Aleppinos and the Lebanese monks. So they discussed the matter and decided to have like two congregations from the same spirituality, but with two administrations. The one called himself the Baladite, which is the local Maronite monks, and the others they were still called Aleppinos. And then after some time, it was founded another order, Antonine order, also the same regula, the same of life, the same spirituality, but they have another other foundators. So these three still now in Lebanon and all over the world with the Maronite, wherever there are Maronites, and they have had a lot of wonderful spiritual life because they were living the regula of all the monasteries, orat et laborat. So they were working in the fields and whatever, and they were preaching. But they had something special also. Let's say they accepted to go to the small villages to preach from time to time, especially in very difficult times or in some important times of feast. Let's say in Quaresima in the land or whatsoever. So these are our orders. We have from them, at least one of them, three until now, four saints: San Charbel, San Matalla, Santa Rafka for the women order, and a third who is brother. He wasn't priest. So you understand? But what happened? Another reform was done lately, not without saying, but just after the independence of Lebanon, they thought it was better to evangelize through institutions, schools, hospitals, and so on. Say they built a lot of schools, a lot of hospitals, a lot, and they did a wonderful work, really, with others. But this is a kind of being far from the original charisma, because some monasteries now they still have this life of prayer and orat and laborat to pray and to work. Most of the others are like institutions, you understand? So they become like Jesuits, like others who have the charisma to teach or to. So they are now, but they are very powerful, as Guillaume said, with money, and they do anyway. They do a lot of good work. My university, where I was taught theology, is belong to this order, the Maronite Lebanese order. I teach now in it. It does a lot of good things. They have two, at least, or three university now in Lebanon. They do a lot of good work, but it's no more this monastery or the monastic life that used to have before. This is the difference, and they're very influential, let's say. So, but we have many saints of them. The only saints of even after Maroon are from these monks. San Charbel was monk of them also, the very famous San Charbel. And we are working together. They help also in the parishes. Many parishes are held by them, and they do a lot of good work. So this is the question of the monasteries.
Sì, this what is interesting. It's that it's true that the monks they have a lot of social interaction. It's a Maronite tradition because even the first Maronites they were very integrated in the social life of the villages, and that's why Maronitism became so important and so I can say compact as a society, not only a spirituality but a real life.
To stress one thing. We say, some people say the Maronite church is monastical church. It's not true, but it is true. It means the beginning was the monastery. And then around the monastery, many other people, many villages, as you say, and there was interaction between the monastery, who was, let's say, helping people to have a real Christian life, and the monastery who should go to the parishes from time to time, as I say, to help, to preach, to work. So this is true, as Guillaume said, there was always interaction with the society, with our monks. What I was only saying, it is now a bit far from monastic life but still we have some monasteries at least, and many of our monks, they want to come back to this hermitage and this hermit life. We hope so.
Yes, the synod also speak about this importance to renew the monastic life in Lebanon. So it's interesting this question. Perhaps someone else have other questions. I saw that so many people joined us. Now lately, perhaps some people they stop to watch us because the number decreased. But we have some friends. We have Ingrid from Marseille, Fadia from Saida, Mario from Saida, also Dolly. And so we are very happy to have you. I don't know, Father Marek, what do you think? We can stop the transmission, or there are so other questions, other things that could be interesting? Say me. we are at your disposition. Hello? So I think that perhaps we can close the the connection, and we can hear it again online on the website of Domus Orientalis. So we say you goodbye, and perhaps for another time, another possibility, another conference that we can speak, perhaps also spreading the news among our friends, because now all of us, we are at home, so we can share to these kind of events that are very interesting and always an opportunity to be in contact and to new things. Okay? So have a nice day and see you for another meeting online. Bye-bye to everyone, and bye, and take safe, take care, stay at home, stay at home. You understand? Stay at home.
Bye-bye.
Bye everyone, bye.